Okay, cool. I think we're live. I'm back. The kids are maybe asleep. My wife's getting them into bed. Time to jump back in. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. Hopefully people just jump in. I'm going to try and get through the rest of these really quick because I really got to get to bed and I got a bunch of other stuff I still need to do before I do that. So hopefully people just jump in and yeah, let me go back to the browser view here. Okay, so going where we left off from part one, the school strikes have been going on in a bunch of different countries, spreading throughout Europe. I know there's some places in America that are starting to have students join, and I cannot say enough good things about these young people doing something, trying to get their voices heard. Many of them are actually below the voting age, so they actually can't. Hey Leon, welcome back. So a lot of these young people actually can't go out and vote yet, but I really think it's like super important that they are getting their voice out there and getting a lot of attention and getting a lot of adults to pay attention that normally wouldn't. Hey Dave, welcome back. Great to see you again, man. So yeah, I think just if anybody hasn't heard about Greta so far, I mean, my hat's off to her. Like, I wish I was that kind of like politically engaged and hey Ellie, thanks for coming back. Yeah, I wish I was that engaged at that age. I mean, I was probably just stuck in my room playing video games at that time. It's like ridiculous. So yeah, hats off to her and everybody else who's following her lead. And this is an interesting article. It was like an opinion piece on The Guardian, and it was written and signed basically by academics, scientists, and other kind of intellectual people, and they are basically standing in solidarity with the children doing the school strikes, for climate change. And you can just basically see a list of all the people who have signed this. It's 280, I don't know, whatever it was. I don't know however many people, but it's a huge list of people. Oh, 224. Sorry, 224 academics. So these are all various people that are, basically saying that yes, climate change is an emergency. It is something we need to deal with, today, not tomorrow, and that the time is running out. And they stand with Greta. So hats off to all these people. And yeah, I think just to anybody else who's following her lead and starting their own school strike, I can only support that. And yeah, tip my hat to you. The next article here, this is a young activist here in the US. She is, where is she? She's in Denver, Colorado, and she's only 12 years old, and she's also trying to get a local kind of school strike set up. But at this point, if I remember the article right, she's basically alone. She's got nobody to help her. She's totally kind of on her own, and she's trying to get people engaged, and she's having a really tough time even getting like other kids her age involved. They think she's kind of weird, and they don't really like support her. A lot of people, I guess, have even bullied her in her previous school, and yeah, I just can't like say enough. Like, she's struggling there, and she's getting flack from adults around her. Like, she's having a tough time with some of the school administration. They don't want her missing classes. They're not being supportive at all. Luckily, her parents are very supportive. It sounds like she's got some really great parents, and they're doing a great job like raising her, obviously. But she's been kind of in the news before because she stood up to a representative. So this is Republican State Representative Doug Lamborn, and he's a climate change denier. And when he was doing like a town hall where she lives, she actually went and like asked him a question. And basically, I think it kind of came off that, where was it? She was basically saying like, yeah, it's like, if the carbon polluter's money is holding you back, I can organize kids, adults, and money, and we can use social media and do grassroots, she told him, as people in the crowd flashed green cards and cheered. So it's like, kudos to her. She's got super like chutzpah, and I don't know, man, that's just awesome that she's like standing up to these people, who are definitely part of the problem and not the solution. It's only gonna get better if people like her, raise their voice and get more and more people involved. So please, if anybody's watching this, be supportive of these kids as much as you can. And yeah, like, I stand with them. Like, this is the best thing you can possibly see, is to see young people get involved because yeah, the old people aren't going to be fixing this, unfortunately. Next, Theresa May criticizes pupils missing school to protest over climate change. This is what I'm talking about. The, political establishment do not want to deal with these problems. They simply just want a status quo to continue because they're lining their pockets from the backs of everybody, who's working and is ultimately going to be suffering the consequences of these horrible, planetary tragedies that we're committing. And, I think I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter and, Facebook and other kinds of places where people don't really seem to understand that the rich people aren't going to be suffering the same consequences that the masses will. So when you have like the poor who are going to be being displaced from their homes because of rising sea levels or just totally inhabitable, situations because of drought or fires or whatever. I mean, look at California. Those are the kind of the unwashed masses that these elite people in power, that's not going to be them. They will take care of themselves. They'll move. They'll like do something else. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, look at what they do as far as like fracking. Look at what they do as far as anything else that involves like destroying somebody's ecology, their environment, their whatever. They just move and do it somewhere else. It's the not in my backyard, but they can do it among the poor. And it's really going to take like people standing up to this kind of abuse for it to change. Because I don't, I mean, here it is. She's like, oh, they'd be better, doing their schoolwork. It's like, why should they be doing their schoolwork? Like Greta said it perfectly. Like, there's no future. If like this doesn't get fixed, the future is so bleak. Like, what good is it going to be to have a degree and then be like suffering from the effects of what these people are doing? So yeah, it's like they gave the standard answer of just like, oh, it's a disruption and everybody should have their voice, but ultimately what they're saying is like, yeah, you should have your voice, but just keep it to yourself, okay? Be quiet over there, go back to school. And it's just sad that this is the response that they get. It's very obvious, like, she's not going to be helping them. Same thing from this person, Rob Stokes. This is New South Wales down in Australia. Education Minister has warned students and teachers will be punished if they follow through on a climate rally during class time, scheduled for March 15th. I hope that they go through with it. And screw this guy. I mean, honestly, like, if I were a parent in that school system, I would absolutely do everything in my power to have my kid be able to go, and I would support them, even in the face of the administration like this. I mean, what a shame. Like, this is just a disgrace that somebody who could call himself an education minister would basically punish students and teachers for actively trying to do something about the issue that is affecting the whole world. It's just absolutely shameful. Next, I want to talk a couple of trophy hunting kind of stories here. Botswana is mulling the lifting of a ban on elephant hunting. So they're saying like the elephants are now in numbers that are no longer endangered, and they're saying they're about 130,000, which some argue is too many for the ecosystem. There's an increasing conflict between wildlife and people, and so they just want to start handing out some licenses to shoot some elephants. Now you have to realize there's huge money to be made in these kinds of things, and ultimately whenever I've seen any one of these stories, despite the claims to the contrary where everybody's saying, oh, it's like a boon to the local economy and whatever, I haven't been convinced of that. I've looked into it. That doesn't hold up as far as I see, and I know some people will argue this, but I haven't seen anything convincing to say that there's an overall benefit to giving out really expensive licenses to shoot these poor animals, and it's not helping the situation, especially for animals that are endangered. So this is just a sad kind of story. They're really describing a problem that's more of the animals being encroached upon, like their environment being encroached upon by humans, and it's really not as easy as they would make it sound. Like there's just too many elephants. It's more like there's too many people encroaching on their space, and they're coming into contact with people more, so they're getting annoyed by it. It's like the stories I showed you guys in the previous stream, where in India people were chasing away the elephants, with the fire and all this kind of stuff. So it's really just like there's more conflict because they're encroaching on their space. So that's really what's happening. So I hope that this doesn't go through, but I mean, who knows? It probably will. I would think if the support is there from the upper you know, echelons of the government, which it seems like they are, because they're hailing this report. Here is another absolutely mind-boggling story here. A trophy hunter pays $110,000 to kill and pose with a rare mountain goat. This is a goat in Pakistan, and he's an American guy, and basically this guy paid the highest ever fee for shooting one of these goats, and it's just absolutely horrendous. I mean, just think about, you know, what this kind of thing entails. This guy has enough money that he can fly to the other side of the world, like from America to Pakistan. He can pay $110,000. So, like, forget the cost of the flight and the food and all his stuff and bringing over probably, you know, weapons. He probably had to pay all sorts of, you know, stuff for, like, transporting the, you know, rifles or buying stuff there or renting stuff there or whatever. All this money. Then he pays $110,000. I mean, $110,000 to, like, probably whatever 85% of the people in the world is more money than they'll ever see in their whole life. And, you know, even in, like, highly developed areas of the world, that is a ton of money. I mean, like, I wish I had that kind of money now. I mean, that's it's just an insane amount of money. And, you know, this is somebody who's clearly probably filthy stinking rich, and to him this is like me taking my family down to Croatia for the summer, or like for like a week, you know, or something. Like, that's probably the equivalent of, like, how much this is kind of hurting his pocketbook. And to think that somebody has this kind of money and this is what they choose to use it for, this is what they you know, put out this kind of money. Like, think of how many people he could be helping. Think of how many, you know, homeless people, starving people, children education, whatever you want to call it. I mean, even like conservation effort. Like, that's what all these hunters are always saying, like, oh, well, you know, we're like putting that money in the local economy. I guarantee you most of that money went into, like, individuals' pockets that they never turn it back into the economy. It's the trickle-down economy. It doesn't work. It's just unbelievably sad. And I just think, like, you know, this is a very rare, you know, mountain goat. I think they said there's something like 20,000 left of them or something. I forget exactly how many, but I mean, it's not very many. There's, you know, it's just oh, I'm sorry, 5,700. So there's 5,700 of these things, and he gets to pay, you know, $110,000 and go kill one of these things. It's just absolutely sad. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's a disgrace. Yeah, Dave, I absolutely agree. I just can't even wrap my mind around it sometimes. It's just so unbelievable. Like, what is wrong with people? I just don't understand. Here's another thing where, you know, I want to make it clear that I've talked about this issue before too. This doesn't just happen in, like, far-flung regions of the world where people are corrupt and you can pay off the, you know, local governments or the people that are conservation, you know, authorities or whatever. This is a issue that I've covered before in the UK. There is the governmental conservation watchdog, you know, whatever group, which has been giving out licenses to kill endangered birds, and they always look at kind of, like, I guess, you know, different reasons why they can give out these licenses to kill them, but they're basically for, like, people safety and also for, like, farm and farmed animals safety. So what they're saying, though, is that you know, they've given out so many of these now. The government's conservation watchdog has issued licenses to destroy 170,000 wild birds, eggs, and nests, including rare and declining species such as curlews and swifts in the past 5 years. And they're saying that there's no way there's enough oversight on this. Like, you can't give out that many licenses in 5 years because the size of the agency and the number of people involved, there's no way they can actually be vetting them. And usually what you find if you read this article is that the people who are getting these licenses are using these to basically protect their farmed animal interests. Some of these are in the interest of, like, airline safety, so they'll kill birds that are near you know, aircraft landing and takeoff strips because they don't want to be, you know, having the birds be caught in the engines. So I mean, that's, like, you know, that I can definitely say is like a human safety you know, concern. But a lot of these are just totally, you know, BS sounding, and it's basically done to protect you know, human interest, like economic interest. So you can see here, cormorants were targeted by more licenses than any other bird, with more than 2,000 licenses issued, mainly to angling and fishing interests, to kill 12,000 birds. So it's like, you know, they don't want like these birds to be taking away their fish, so they just kill them. And you know, here's another thing: 21,000 mallards over the 5-year period, 16,000 herring gulls, a species which is in long-term decline. I mean, it's crazy. They really give you all the details, and I've talked about this in previous streams, so if anybody wants to check it out, like, you know, take a look. But it's just absolutely sad that, you know, it's like this is just happening, and yeah, it tells you how they're killing them and which, you know, method they're using for destroying their eggs and all this kind of stuff. It's an absolute disgrace, and this isn't just, you know, the developing world. A bit of good news here. It's kind of funny that it's got Trump's smiling face on it. Usually that doesn't go along with good news, but he's signed into law the amendment to the Farm Bill, which makes it illegal to basically slaughter and sell for food dog and cat meat. So this is something I've talked about in a couple of previous streams, and it looks like it did get signed now, so it will be illegal in the US to slaughter, trade, and import and export dogs and cats for human consumption. And this was previously legal in 44 states, so the majority of the 50 states, almost all of them, it was legal in. And yeah, now it's illegal, so that's a good first step. And certainly, you know, I think before, like, the US could wave a finger at anybody else and point to the, you know, societies in Asia or wherever where they were regularly consuming cats and dogs and are still doing that, they didn't even have their own house in order. And in the UK, I know that it was also being proposed that they would do the same. So hopefully they go through with it as well. And hopefully when people see this kind of thing, they start thinking and making the connection between, you know, the pigs and the chickens and everything else, because they're really not that different from dogs. They're just not as fluffy. Speaking of dogs and cruelty, I'm including this story because this lady ended up shooting her own dog. Luckily the dog survived. It needed you know, several surgeries and what have you, but it did survive. And she's going to be serving, I guess, 180 days in jail, and which is like 6 months, it says, and she's going to be fined $300 and paid to order $3,216.08 in restitution to the animal rescue for the dog's surgeries. So that's good. And yeah, she's going to be required to serve community control after that when she's released. And yeah, she's not going to be allowed to own animals for the next 5 years, and is a felon, is not going to be allowed to own or possess a gun. And I think, hey Vohan, welcome back. Why did she shoot the dog? I think, if I remember the story right, she shot it because she said it was getting unruly, which is just insane. I don't remember, where does it say why did she shoot it? Yeah, so in court, the attorney told the judge her client loved Gemma, that was the dog's name, but the dog had become aggressive. And so, I mean, she just decided that she was going to shoot it. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stuff. So luckily the dog is okay, and hopefully finds a better home, you know, through that animal rescue place. And yeah, this lady maybe will learn a lesson, but I mean, geez, you know, unbelievable. Like, yeah, idiots and guns. I mean, just really not a good combination. And the reason I included that too is because a lot of people, when I saw how people reacted to that story, I saw it on Twitter. It's the typical kind of thing that you see usually. People are just outraged, you know, like people are like, oh my God, they should shoot her and they should throw her in a thing, and she's lucky I'm not there. I, you know, do this and that, and horrible stuff. People are just like writing crazy stuff about how they would harm her and do all this crazy stuff. And but you know, a lot of these people are not vegan, and a lot of the other vegan activists, you know, online have made it a good point that say, you know, if you're not vegan and you're saying this kind of stuff, but then, you know, what are you doing to, like, farm animals? It's way worse than this poor dog had it. And you know, it's like people really need to make this kind of connection. So I have got a couple of stories here kind of related to dogs. This next one is people in Sweden protesting to save the lives of 6 Labradors who are currently in a experiment. They're basically in a lab, and they're being used to test like dental replacement treatment or something like that, and yeah, dental implants. And it's a horrible thing. It says here, as part of the trial, 6 Labradors have had a third of their teeth removed and have received the dental implants. At the end of the tests in late February, the dogs will be euthanized so that studies can be carried out on their tissue and blood, and then these studies can be carried out on, they cannot be carried out on living animals. So they're going to kill the animals and then test them. And it is just absolutely, you know, ridiculous that, like, you know, people don't see that this is just insane. Like, I mean, imagine if you did this to people. Like, imagine, I mean, you know, and you know, thankfully people are outraged and they're trying to petition the government to like not allow this to happen. This was the last batch of dogs that did get killed. This was the previous batch, and you know, the people doing the study are obviously trying to justify it and explain why this is necessary and whatever. But as I've said before in my video on animal testing, and I've said it many times on these live streams, you know, animal testing is horrifically cruel, it's immoral, it's illogical, and it's ineffective. The main thing that, even if you don't care about the animals, you should realize that the testing is counterintuitive. It can lead you down the wrong road. Even if you develop something that you think will be good in humans and you go to test it in an animal, due to the genetic differences in the animal and the species, you might end up finding that you get a result that suggests the new treatment or the process or the chemical or drug or whatever is actually not good. And you might be very wrong. I've given examples about this in my video, but like, just because they may or may not find a positive, you know, reaction to this implant technology that they're using, it might still be horrible in people. It might give them cancer. It might kill them. It might be poison. I don't know. And you're never going to know until you actually do it. So in the meantime, you're just torturing these animals for no reason. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, Dave, that's great that you're hearing that. Hopefully, you know, people are getting behind it. And it's interesting because they even make a point in this article to say that in Sweden they have very difficult like and tough like requirements to get passed to get animal testing approved. So like usually they have to like really strongly justify it, I guess, because they realize that a lot of these things can be done with like computer simulations and all sorts of other kind of testing. And but they're saying that this is necessary for whatever reason. They're not really saying why though. So I think, you know, I call BS on it, and I'm against all animal testing. So yeah, I just think it's like, it's really, really counterintuitive, counterproductive, and it can really like be a huge opportunity cost, because it can send people down the wrong road. And in fact, if you're on the right track, it can deter you from that because you think it might not work. Because even if it doesn't work in the dogs, it may have actually worked really well in humans. So if it doesn't work in the dogs, they might, you know, stop that experiment, and maybe it would have been a great thing for human dental implants, but not for the dogs. So this is just really crazy. I hope they, you know, save the dogs. I don't know. It's getting close to the end of February. This was an article that I want to kind of highlight, just like in the, you know, in the first half of the stream, that sometimes I wonder, you know, what are these, you know, financial interests in the mainstream media. So on Good Morning Britain, there was a guest. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Peter Egan, but he's a pretty outspoken, you know, animal rights activist and supporter. I follow him on Twitter. He's got some really good posts that he's shared. And they had a animal testing proponent on the show, and they also had him to speak against it. And it's just absolutely insane. If you watch this clip, he barely gets to even start talking, and the host, it just immediately cuts him off and just says like, yeah, you know, that's just gonna go over the head of the people watching. Like, we don't need to hear you, basically. I mean, that's not her exact words, but you know, I don't even remember. Yeah, here's the quote. I think for our viewers, none of that will mean anything, Peter. And you know, she just cut the guy off, and it's just like, wow. As soon as somebody is going to start saying something that actually makes sense and explains that, like, look, guys, this is not actually effective, not going to work. No, we don't need to hear that. You know, the people, that's just too confusing. The other guy appealed to the emotions, and they immediately tried to like override his point by saying like, yeah, but if you're sick and, you know, are you not going to take an you know, a medicine that's an animal, you know, that got derived from animal testing and whatever. And I mean, come on, let's be realistic. Like, I don't think even most vegans would say this, but like, you know, most people probably would agree that like anything that's already been derived, even if it was derived from animal testing, like as long as it's no longer requiring more animals to die, I don't think the thing itself should be, you know, banned or stopped from use. It's more just like, don't do any more. Like, stop where you are, and anything that you've already derived, as long as it, you know, it's like you've tested some new drug or whatever, as long as it doesn't involve the suffering, further suffering of animals, like I don't think it's wrong to continue using that. I certainly wouldn't blame anybody for taking, you know, a drug that was developed on animals, but I don't think we should develop any more drugs on animals. Yeah, Vohen's, I mean, that's my view exactly. The harm is already done. You're not saving any further animals by stopping to use something that was already tested and, you know, done through these like cruel experiments. I just don't want any more. It's like, this is the classic case of like this, you know, this host on this TV show. It's almost like when people are saying like, you know, they're using the justification of like, but you know, you shouldn't use the thing that was already done, and they're using that as justification to do more of it. Unlike other animals, it's just makes no sense. Completely nuts. So yeah, if anybody wants to get mad, you can just watch this clip. It's absolutely disgusting how they talk over the guy. And kudos to Peter for going on. You know, I always think it's like you're going into the den of wolves when you go on these like mainstream news programs, because they're just out to make you look bad, or like that you don't know what you're doing. And speaking of wolves, this was a feel-good kind of interesting story. Some Estonian guys were out by a freezing river, and they saw what they thought was a dog. It was like kind of like groggy and stuck in the freezing water, and they raced out to rescue it because they thought it was a dog. And they brought it in to a veterinarian's office because, you know, it was like very clearly in distress and frozen and all this kind of stuff. And they even drove in, like the guy says, he let it sit on his outstretched legs, and you know, like he was just like laying there kind of on the, you know, on the guy's legs in the car. And they brought it in, and then they started like kind of looking at it, and it's like, oh, it turned out to be a 1-year-old wolf. So it was kind of like a young wolf. And luckily they were able to treat it, and then they later released it. You know, they called in the environmental, you know, whatever it is, conservation group, and then they I think they tagged it or something with like a tracking, you know, GPS thing, and then they released it again. So thankfully, you know, the wolf was okay. But I mean, look at it, it's just so cute. And I'm not surprised that they you know, felt compassion. People do feel compassion for dogs. It's because they're so much a part of our, you know, communities, and you know, a lot of people grow up with dogs. Like, you just feel this kind of like kinship to them, and I can only hope that, like, you know, they would feel that for the other animals too, if they saw them for what they are. And going back to the first half of the stream when I was talking about the coyotes, like, I mean, they're really just like dogs. It's no different. So anyway, here's another thing. If anybody wants to sign this petition, it's trying to get the Northern Territory in Australia to ban the use of these prong or pinch collars on dogs. So, you know, rightfully so, they're saying that they're cruel, inhumane, and unnecessary. These will often dig into the skin of the dogs, and they're barbaric and disgusting, as it says, and there's no reason to use them. There's other better training methods, and that's what people should use. So if anybody can, please sign this petition and try to get that banned in Australia. Next, what's up here? Australia officially ends cosmetic testing. So this was fantastic news. We'll just scroll down here. Basically, they are going to stop cosmetic testing. So this is, again, something that's already happened in many areas of the world. I think the EU banned it quite some time ago, and more places are banning it. So this is awesome news. And yeah, basically, let's see. Yeah, the Senate passed Industrial Chemicals Bill 2017, effectively banning cosmetic animal testing nationwide. The bill was first introduced by the House of Representatives in June 2017 and supported by animal rights group Humane Society International. Sadly, I mean, it did seemingly take quite a long time, but it did go through, and that is fantastic news. So I'm very happy to see that. Hopefully other countries follow suit. And next one here, something that I've talked about in, you know, other videos, not the news live streams, but I covered it, I think, in one of the ones that I did a while back. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and there is a new study that basically says that the glyphosate and other active ingredients in the Roundup, which is the most common weed suppressor or killer, it increases your cancer risk by 41%, which is a huge amount. Obviously, Monsanto / Bayer, they refute this and maintain that it's super safe and whatever. This poor gentleman won a lawsuit against them. He won initially a lawsuit of $289 million because he got terminal cancer from using Roundup. Then they later dropped that settlement to like 70-something million, I think. But still, I'm glad that they had to pay that out, or it seems like they will have to anyway. And there's just many people who have come forward now, in lawsuits saying that they've gotten cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and other cancers, and basically, yeah, like you can see here in 2015, the World Health Organization's IARC, that's the Cancer Research Agency, they classify glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans. That is the same as red meat, and so yeah, it's pretty serious. It says here in 2017, CNN reported more than 800 people were suing Monsanto. By the following year, that figure was in the thousands. So good on them. I hope that they put this company out of business, quite frankly. So yeah, if anybody knows my channel, you know what my answer to all of this is. Like, well, what do you do with the weeds? I advocate for permaculture principles, veganic permaculture principles specifically, and you can do all of this stuff and provide all the food you need without the use of the chemicals. I'm going to have a follow-up article here. It's going to be in a little bit, but there's a good study that actually supports what I just said. Let me see. Hey Bennett, I wonder whether companies could just make their products more natural with less chemicals, meaning less testing on animals, for the testing of the animals. Yeah, that would be a great thing. And honestly, I think for anything that's like a cosmetic, I mean, the word itself tells you how important that should be treated. It's cosmetic. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but like, there should just never be, if it was even just testing on an ant, I still wouldn't support some stupid makeup or some stupid cologne or anything that is just like this. It's a ridiculous product that like is just not even necessary to be tested on any kind of like animal. It just infuriates me. It's like, you want to test something that you want to put on your face? Like, put it on your face. Like, why do we have to like torture, bunnies and like dogs and beagles and all sorts of other, animals? It's just absolutely mind-boggling. Like, yeah, you want to know if this thing's gonna like dissolve your eyeballs? Like, maybe you should think like, geez, like maybe I shouldn't put in something into that product that is gonna dissolve like my skin or whatever. It's like, should be obvious. I don't know. Here's a crazy story that I came across. It was this dairy farmer. He's gonna have to end up killing 4,000 cows. He's basically like having to fold his business. He's in New Mexico, and apparently he's been suffering for years without realizing that his wells, so he has 13 wells on his property, and they've been like horrifically contaminated by toxins coming from an Air Force base nearby. So Cannon Air Force Base is like near this guy's farm, and it's basically, let's see, what was it? Here is what he says. Yeah, last summer, Shap learned that the substance that would turn his life upside down. Not only were his cows and calves impacted, but Shap himself has 8 to 10 times the normal levels of PFAS in his bloodstream, and his wife is likely facing the same fate. So basically, it's what is this? I'm not even going to be able to pronounce this. Polyfluoroalkyl substances that entered the groundwater at the nearby Air Force Base. And so yeah, he's dumping 15,000 gallons of milk each day. He's had to let go his 40 employees, and he has to kill his 4,000 cows. You can't sell the meat, can't sell the milk, he can't sell the farm. It's like totally useless because the groundwater's so polluted. And yeah, it's crazy. So the Department of Defense has disclosed 121 installations where groundwater has been impacted by PFAS. And yeah, it's just crazy. Like, there's many other dairies that are impacted. They're saying that not only are there 80,000 dairy cows in Curry County, local news stations report presence of PFAS is spreading slowly in the Ogallala Aquifer, the largest aquifer in the nation, which spans 174,000 miles in parts of 8 states. I mean, think of the territory that this is impacting. and it's the U.S. Department of Defense doing it. And hi, Raven, nice to see you. Thanks. And it's impacting so many, you know, people and so much of the environment here. And you know, they're basically just going to continue with this. So here they basically said. The Environmental Protection Agency announced last week its intent to regulate the chemical by year's end, but the agency's plan does not include immediate cleanup actions. So they're not going to do anything about it, and they're basically, you know, using this to test like jet fuel fires. I think this is what it is. Here it is. PFAS are used in the fire retardant foam to smother flames from mock airplanes set on fire by trainees. The chemicals make the foam resistant to grease, water, dirt, and heat, which make it useful in extinguishing jet fuel fires. So these guys are just like, they're doing like mock burning. They're setting stuff on fire with jet fuel, and then they're using this like horrifically dangerous chemical to put out the fire. Like, can this not be done with a simulation or something? I mean, like, we have like insane 3D technology and vibrating, you know, equipment and seats and chairs, and you can, I don't know, put them in masks that restrict their airflow. I mean, you could probably replicate pretty well like a fire through like a, you know, 3D virtual reality kind of situation. It's absolutely insane that, like, you know, what the U.S. does to like maintain their hegemony on over the world, and the military-industrial complex is just like, they don't care about anything. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Now, I mean, obviously, I'm not sympathetic to the guy being a dairy farmer, but I'm still sympathetic to the environment being poisoned by this horrible thing, and all the cows are going to get killed anyway. And you know, this guy and his wife are going to be in like serious, you know, trouble. And he was running his dairy for 2-3 years before this came to light. So think of all the people who consumed his dairy products that also probably, you know, are going to be sick from this, like, whatever PFAS chemical. It's just absolutely insane. I've covered it many times before, but you know, it's shown that like up to about 95% of the you know, inorganic compounds that people have in their blood come from the fatty tissues or you know, dairy or whatever of animals. So it's just like, you know, very, very possible that he's probably caused, you know, like toxic, you know, poisoning to everyone who has been buying from his dairy for 2 or 3 years. I mean, it's another good reason to not do it, obviously, but still, like, this is just insane. Yeah, that's another good point. Euthanize or slaughter event. You know, they're probably going to bolt gun them and, you know, stab them out. I don't think they'll put them out nicely. Like, they're not going to do anything that's more expensive than what's necessary. He's not making any money on it. So, yeah, it's just insane. Leon, several cities have, like Flint, have toxic tap water for years now. The U.S. is crazy. Absolutely. And people, you know, they don't, I don't know, they don't have any way to fix this. Like, it's just crazy. Vohan, plant-based food is much safer in many ways. It is, yep. Dairy is scary, and now freely is hairy. Okay. So, yeah, crazy stuff. Belgium, this news article comes from there. People noticed that there were Go Vegan green lights throughout the city in various spots, and there were some red lights that said Stop Meat. I have seen people spray paint this on to traffic lights in various places, but because it looks to be kind of like part of the lamp itself, people had thought this was some kind of like actual, you know, government or local government initiative, but you can actually see them here too, Stop Meat and Go Vegan. But it turns out that this was vandalism. Put that in air quotes. So yeah, it says here, update. According to the Belgian reporter Sophie de Villers, this is an illegal campaign by vegan activists. So yeah, I mean, I still think it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know, it even looks kind of neat. They did a nice job. And they do point out that in 2017, Brussels launched gay pride lights and crosswalks in celebration of Belgian Pride, an annual gay rights celebration. And it's not the first, and other cities have done similar kind of unique traffic signs. So you can see here too, you know, men figures walking. They did one in Germany here where the you know, Elvis Presley was singing and doing his little signature dance moves. So yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't think it's really damaging or harmful, and who knows, maybe somebody sees this and goes like, oh, I wonder what that is. You know, takes a longer look. So I think that's pretty cool. This is an insane story, kind of the, like, whoa, that's such a weird thing. Some dude in Houston was trying to find an abandoned house so he could go smoke some weed, and he went into a house, and in the garage of the house he found a tiger that was like you know, being kept inside there. So there's an abandoned house, there was a tiger in the garage, and apparently there were several packages of meat left for the tiger to eat. So you can only, you know, wonder like what the heck was going on there. But the guy obviously, you know, basically reported it, and then it's kind of interesting to me, like, you know, did he, like, how did this come out that he had gone there to smoke weed? Like, maybe he was like actually high and like just got freaked out by the tiger enough and then told the cops, like, yeah, I came there to smoke weed, or I don't know, like, how that part of the story comes out. But I just think it's hilarious. And, you know, all I can think of in the is like the scene from, you know, the Hangovers movie where the guy's peeing, and then he hears the lion roar and he like turns while he's peeing. You know, it's like all I can think of is this guy smoking up and finding this lion, or sorry, a tiger. I mean, thankfully, you know, the tiger was okay, and they brought it to like a sanctuary. They're gonna rehome it to a permanent place. But yeah, they here it is. They transferred it to Cleveland Amory Black Beauty Ranch, where it's joined more than 800 other animals. And yeah, it's a big tiger, 350-pound tiger. So it's just crazy, man. I don't know, like, or I mean, if you saw this, like, and just like, I wonder if he's thinking like, oh man, this is like the craziest grass I've ever smoked. I don't even know. Like, it's just so weird. Race lever, yeah. But it says he thought he was tripping. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I wonder if he got high first and thought he was tripping when he saw the tiger. Absolutely, man. I mean, like, I just can't even believe, like you go into an abandoned house to like be kind of alone, and then you see a tiger. It's like, wow, Leon, yet another sentient being saved by weed. Well, I mean, thankfully they did get the animal to a sanctuary, so he's gonna be okay. And yeah, that is such a weird story. I love seeing this kind of stuff where there's a happy ending. Race thought it first. Okay, you know, going back to something I said in the first half of the stream, like, you know, a lot of times people will make the claim that, you know, veganism is a privilege and blah, 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 and, you know, only, you know, these white people can, you know, afford it and all this kind of stuff, and well-to-do people. And if you just look at this article, it is quite the contrary. There was an assessment done, and it says that Brits saved 2.8 billion pounds. That's a huge amount of money by eating less meat in 2018. So they estimated basically, you know, on the price of meat, and then what you're basically replacing it with. And they did some surveys, and basically they found that according to the findings, 26% of those surveyed had reduced their meat intakes in the last year. That reduction amounted to a modest 209 pounds savings per person, collectively adding up to the nearly 3 billion. So I think I can vouch for this. I know it's an anecdote, but when I you know, became a vegan and adopted a mostly whole food plant-based diet, I saved a ton of money. I mean, I was buying a lot of dairy, I was buying a lot of meat. I mean, I guess like a silly thing, like not a lot of meat, but you know, enough that like it was a very costly thing. And yeah, like I definitely started saving money. I mean, like buying fresh, you know, fruits, veggies, grains, all that stuff, it's like, it's dirt cheap compared to the price of meat and cheese and dairy. You know, anyone who tells you, you know, the opposite is basically trying to sell you something. And I actually have in my video that I've done before about the excuses not to go vegan, I covered it in there, and I've even linked to some studies that actually break it down in US figures. And you can really actually save a ton of money over the course of a year by adopting a you know, a mostly whole food, you know, plant-based diet. And generally, yep, absolutely right, Jen. Saving medications and the healthcare costs, yep. I mean, that goes without saying. You're going to be a lot healthier. So I think they even have had studies there. Yes, here it is. Here's the link to it. 2016 study suggested that the savings of the world shifting to a predominantly vegan diet would be $2 to $3 trillion in the U.S. and 20 trillion to 30 trillion worldwide. I mean, imagine what good could be done with this kind of money if, yeah, you know, if people did that. Grow your own is cheap. Actually, you're absolutely right, Race. I have saved a ton of money this past summer by growing, you know, stuff in our garden. And our garden was not huge by any means. I mean, the whole thing, the whole little plot that we were using was only maybe about 3 meters by 4 meters. So what is that, like, I don't know, 15 feet by maybe, I don't know, like under 20 feet. It's not a huge, you know, garden, and we are still eating some of the stuff that was produced there, and it's awesome. I have so many things still canned, you know, in the pantry. I have you know, jam that I've put away from the fruit trees. I mean, and we did not have a big yard by any means, so you know, it's like, yeah, you can grow a lot of your own stuff, and even if you just have a really tiny backyard, you can grow a ton of food in there. So yeah, great to see articles like this. And then this one is the one that I mentioned to you guys. This was a study that showed that European farms could switch to all organic, and they would still be able to feed the population, with the big caveat being that they go to a predominantly plant-based farming. So moving away from the animal-based farming, if you go to a plant-based agriculture system, you can actually feed the population of Europe with the existing farming setups and do it green without the, you know, pesticides and the chemicals. And this study is awesome. I would definitely recommend people to check this out. They're basically saying that this presents a credible way of feeding Europe by 2050. But it says action is needed now, with the next 10 years critical in engaging Europe in the transition. And they're trying to get basically, you know, people to support this in the UK and other areas, because yeah, they're basically saying that study models a future in which Europe meat production has been cut by 40%, with the greatest reductions in grain-fed pork and poultry. So yeah, man, I mean, this is the way to go. Jen, organic is carnism. Yeah, I hope that those people making those kind of silly claims look at this kind of stuff, because this is the future. It goes hand in hand, and I think just, you know, everybody, if you've got literally like 50 by 50, you know, foot yard, there's like a, you know, 15 by 15 meter yard, like you can take that and grow so much food in it, you have no idea. I mean, you know, and if you're hand harvesting things, I mean, you can just reduce the harm even further, you know, because then you're not only not using the chemicals, the manures, you're also not disturbing the soil as much, you're not digging it. Do the no-till method, the stuff I talk about in my videos with the mulch, or, you know, other heavy ground cover plants like clover and other kinds of things like that, and you'd be amazed at what you can grow. If nothing else, if you're lazy, you don't want to deal with like tomatoes and whatever, plant a few fruit trees. I mean, you're still going to be creating habitat for birds and, you know, other kind of animals, and you're going to get fruit with very little effort, you know. So yeah, I think that's the way to go. Yeah, Leon, only if there is still animal agriculture. Well, we can hope, you know. I mean, who knows, maybe by 2050, you know, most people will be fully vegan. Maybe it won't be a 40% reduction, maybe it'll be a 99% reduction, and you'll, you know, you'll be the freak outcast, you know, carnivore person growing chickens in your backyard, because that'll be the only place you'll be able to get meat, and you'll have to do it in the secret, because, you know, it'll be illegal to kill the chickens anyway. I mean, you know, the people will be like doing stuff like that. Who knows? I mean, hopefully it turns on its head the ratios that people are doing now. So that's a great article. Definitely check that one out. And yeah, this is just so that you guys don't think I'm a Trump supporter based on the previous, you know, article with him, you know, signing into law the ban of the dog and cat meat trade. Here you have environmental groups launching a lawsuit against his border, you know, wall kind of extension or whatever. They're basically saying that it's going to cause environmental damage and basically harm the animals that you know, migrate across back and forth, and they're going to sue to try to make sure that it doesn't block the wildlife and disrupts the water flow, etc., etc., destroys delicate park ecosystems, and they're saying that it's not the solution to the security and immigration challenges. So we'll see. You know, look at the cost of this too. Trump hopes to gain up to $8 billion to finish the remaining portion of the project. It's insane. And that's, you know, what is this? Yeah, only 128 miles. I mean, think of the cost of this. Like, 128 miles is it's a long distance, don't get me wrong, but like, should it really cost $8 billion? Like, how many people are getting rich off of this project? I'm sure lots of people. Yeah, Leon, to your point about the previous article, it does say a 40% reduction of the meat in the study, which, you know, obviously is not as good as a fully plant-based one. But think about this. If they can already get to fully organic and stop the pesticide use at even just that level, then why aren't they doing it? You know what I mean? Like, the whole argument against like organic is that like, oh, you can't feed enough people, but it's like even at just a 40% reduction, they can already feed the people. So that's why I think it's just, you know, this like organic is carnist argument. It makes no sense. What we need to do is pressure people to do more organic, and that pressure of more organic and people, you know, slowly but surely getting the, you know, the concern for the animals and the environment and the, you know, the bees and the insects, like the other story that I covered, where, you know, depending on which study you're looking at, they're saying that by 2050 we're going to have like, you know, no insects left, or, you know, 3/4 of them have already been gone in the past 27 years. I mean, that's an insane thing. Like, it's scary as hell. Like, what do we do if we got no insects? Like it's just going to have such a huge knock-on effect, and yeah, it's just terrifying. So and yeah, they should have sued Trump when he canceled the Clean Air Act. Yep. Pesticides is where the money is for the Monsanto buyer. Yep, because one of them makes you sick, and then they can sell you the drugs to keep yourself alive. Raven Veganista. Yeah, Trump signs that, but his family are trophy hunters. Yeah, crazy stuff, man. I mean, the rich, they always have this, like, you know, one law for everybody else and then another law for themselves. Crazy stuff. We're getting near the end. Last time I did a kind of like the what the heck is wrong with people category. This is that category in today's episode here, and I'm sorry that I have to even say this or like show it. There is a wild hog explosion festival in Texas. It's centered around abusing these wild pigs. They find these wild pigs, they rip out their teeth so that they can't actually bore the people, and then they round them up and put them in this little like pen, and as you can see here, baby pigs are chased around, kicked and dragged, picked up and dropped by large groups of children. So first they have the children abuse the small baby pigs. After this introductory event, teams of 2, children to teens and adults, chase pigs around the ring and catch them by any means they can, and then run roughly with the pig in a bag across the finish line. Then many pigs get bloodied, injured, and you know, handled roughly, and they're trying to escape, and they're, you know, running into metal fences and all this kind of stuff. All the pigs are scared. They all end up getting killed, and they're basically doing this as a fundraiser for a library. Now, tell me, just like it says here, in 2019, how are humans still abusing animals for entertainment? Like, what year are we living in? Are we living in 2019 BC? What the actual heck is wrong with these people? Like, it's beyond sick. So please, if anybody can, like, sign this thing. They're almost to their 7,500 thing, and just, you know, shame on these people, and like, let's end this kind of barbaric stuff. Even when I was a hardcore anti-vegan and I was eating animals left, right, and center, I still look down upon this kind of stuff. Like, this is just as barbaric and just as stupid as bullfighting and, you know, other things like that. Like, this is just horrifically cruel for no reason whatsoever. Like, it's even more disgusting than killing animals for food when you don't need to, because at least there, most people don't know that they don't need to. You know, they think that they're doing it because they need it. This is like, nobody needs to be torturing a pig. Like, this is just unbelievable. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, please do sign it, everybody, if you can. Okay, Bennett asks, do pesticides destroy the soil? Yes, they definitely do. Leon is absolutely right. It does kill soil bacteria, worms, and insects, which are needed for good soil. Yep, that's absolutely right. I'm going to have the link afterward in a comment at the end, Raven, but the link is up here. I mean, it's super long, so I can't really like read it into you. I'll put all the links at the you know, at the end in a comment, and then if you guys can, I'll put this one at the very top so that it's easy to find it. Thanks, guys. Here is a crazy story, another good reason to not eat meat. In Canada, they did a study. They looked at DNA samples taken from various meats that were sold in supermarkets, and they found that 14% of sausages in Canada contain undeclared species of meat, which means, like, you don't even know what's in there. Okay, it could be horse, could be something else, and you know, who knows? Maybe it's a coyote. I don't know. And the way that they tried to kind of word the article is just really kind of funny, because like this is definitely a little bit kind of scary sounding, but then you actually look at this and they try to make it sound like it's mostly okay. So they say, on the other hand, 97% of the tested products contained the declared species as the predominant meat. This means that 3% of the sausages contain predominantly undeclared species. So it's almost like I had to read this twice, because when I first read it at a glance, I thought, oh, only 3% had the undeclared species. But then I'm like, how did they get to 14? Well, it's not that 3% had the undeclared meat. It's just that 3% had the predominantly undeclared species. So not only was it just that like you didn't know what kind of meat was in there, in 3% of the cases of the products tested, it was the predominant meat in there. So think about that for a little bit. Like, it's not even just like, yeah, Leon's right, like, you know, rats or, you know, Bennett, human or whoever. I mean, like, who knows what kind of meat is in there, right? And like, and in 3% of the sausages tested, they were the predominant meat. You know, like Soylent Green is like is here. Like you have no idea what this, you know, what you're getting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's just shocking when you see this kind of stuff. I'm gonna end here with this is the last story. This is basically for the UK people for the most part, but I guess pretty much if anybody can sign it as well, please do. This is a road, Walsall Road, I guess is the name of the place. It's an allotment, it's a community garden, and you can see here they're a thriving multicultural community of 100 gardeners in North Birmingham, and they've apparently been featured on various BBC shows because they have like some of the nicest you know, gardening sites in the UK, and they are under threat of closure because the 2022 Commonwealth Games are taking place in the same park where our allotments are situated. The council are looking at a wider master plan for the site, and they basically want to take away the allotments from the, you know, from these community gardeners, and you know, prepare it for the stupid Commonwealth Games. And you know, they're also saying that, yeah, they take care of 7 formerly feral cats who will all be homeless if the allotments are taken away, because clearly, you know, people don't have the, you know, the ability to take them, you know, and home them. So please, if you can, sign this too. And I think this is kind of a fitting, you know, place to end these, you know, today's like stories, because I've mentioned it a couple times throughout the you know, the live stream, that I really think like small scale farming is the answer to so many of these problems that we have. I think if people get involved and get their hands in the dirt and start seeing how complex that soil life is, not using the chemicals, getting, you know, connected with their communities, you know, just all of this kind of stuff, that like this is the solution. Small scale, backyard gardens, urban gardens, especially the community gardens. I mean, I can't stress enough how I think important this is. And I really think, like, if anybody's, you know, like-minded, you can start in your own backyard, learn how to do stuff. I have grand plans, you know, at some point in my life. I really hope that I can, you know, maybe start a community garden and get more people involved, like actually show them how to do stuff as I'm learning, because I'm still learning. I'm very much a beginner. You know, last year was really the kind of first year that I did a serious, you know, attempt at like an actual garden. And I think if anything, I want to tell people that like it worked out really well. You can see the success I had in my gardening videos. I have a playlist on my channel. You can just, you know, quickly glance through them if you don't even want to watch all of them. But produced an insane amount of food with basically almost not knowing anything. I've done a couple of, you know, books that I've read and just watched a bunch of videos online, and I tried it and it worked out great. The deep mulch, you know, no-till method is just like, it's the way to go. So if you guys can, you know, get on this and, you know, sign this petition as well. Try to save this for the community. I mean, you know, I keep saying, like, I'm not a fan of watching sports, but I am a fan of sports. I definitely encourage people to get out and be active, but it should never come at the, you know, cost of closing down a community garden that's thriving and doing well. It would be a shame to move these people out just for some stupid, you know, Commonwealth Games. I don't even know what that is, to be honest, but I just can't think it holds a candle to the importance of this. So so yeah, I mean, that's it for the articles today. and I can, I'll put all the links. I haven't even done it for the other video yet for the first half, but I'll do that in a little bit, and I'll put in the links for this one. So definitely check it out. And if you guys have any news stories or anything that you want me to cover for next time, maybe just put them in the comments, and I'll cover them next time or take a look. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening, and I think it's really nice to see the kind of articles that organic farming is viable, and I think we should just start with what we can, which is in our own backyards. I know a lot of people are in an apartment, you don't really have the ability to do that, but maybe that's where the community garden can come in for you. So yeah, let's see, what have you guys got? Jen, they probably voted for Brexit, so sod them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Do you base that on where it is, like where the actual place is? Because I don't know too much about like the breakdown of like who would vote for Brexit or not or whatever. You're very welcome, Dave. Thanks for being on, and thanks, Leon. Thank you too. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions or anything else, I can probably talk for like another 10 minutes or so, but after that I'm gonna get going. Oh, I missed what you wrote above, Leon. I've been reading Eternal Treblinka. It is definitely an eye-opener. That is something that's kind of on my list of reading. I haven't actually read it, but I know about it. That's written by the survivor of the Holocaust who is vegan. I can't remember the guy's name. I'm sure most people probably know it though. It's good to hear that. That's good, Leon. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that directly draws all the comparisons between the mass-produced, farmed food and all this kind of stuff, and of course like the Jewish Holocaust itself. Sarah and Bennett, what do you grow? I grew lots of stuff this past summer, so you can actually check out some of the videos. But it was predominantly like tomatoes, a little bit of corn. I had a few squash, tons of zucchinis. And there were a few things that I tried that didn't really work because I didn't do a good job of like starting my seedlings. So like I didn't really get them out in time, and they didn't do so well. But the things that I just mentioned, they did awesome. I mean, I had so many zucchinis. I actually just finished my last zucchini a couple weeks ago from the summer. Pretty much from the middle of the summer till I think it was like October or even into November, I was still harvesting tomatoes. I mean, I didn't buy a single tomato this summer. Basically from the middle of the summer till like October, end of October, I didn't buy any tomatoes. Even now I still have a bunch of food that I canned, that I'm still eating, and the zucchinis were just crazy. Like I had not too big squash, like I only had a couple, so that wasn't really a huge thing. Yeah, what else? Really had a lot of good fruit. So I had a lot of plums this year, and lots of raspberries. I've got a big, huge raspberry patch that was going, so that was cool. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So it was mostly the tomatoes, the zucchinis, and yeah, I mean that was the main thing. I did do a bunch of herbs as well in a second, kind of like mini side garden at my mother-in-law's place. And we had a bunch of like sorrel and sage and I don't even know what else. Basil. I had lots of basil and dill, and I don't know. I think that was the majority of it. So yeah, but next year I really hope to be able to expand. Jen, listen to the Earthling Ed podcast. Okay, I will try. I'm really bad at like listening to stuff right now. I've been trying to get back into people's channels. I've been really busy, and your next question is exactly why. So how's the house hunting and land hunting going? So it's going pretty good. I'm actually just about to, I think I recorded a video today to post for tomorrow, telling you guys like a mini update. Like we're almost done selling the house, so we're in the final stages, and my wife and I are fingers crossed. I think we found the place that we want to buy. So if it goes through, it's going to be awesome. Like the place is 3 times the size of our old place. So the land is 3 times the size, and we're going to be, well, I don't want to spoil it, so I won't give it away. Like hopefully it goes through. We're working on it. So the lead up to that has been a lot of work. My wife and I were like looking at property for weeks on end. I mean, it was like you know, like one day I would just be like looking at real estate listings the whole day, the next day we would be like out looking at those places all day. Then we'd come back, spend another day looking at real estate listings, and then go out the whole next day. I mean, for basically like 2 weeks straight, 3 weeks almost, like we were just doing that. And I think now we finally got a place that, I mean, we really like it. We're in the process of trying to make sure everything goes through, and we'll see. So fingers crossed. Sierra and Bennett, awesome. Definitely going to do tomatoes and potatoes. Yeah, cool. I have not done potatoes. My brother has done potatoes, and he has had great success. He's also done sweet potatoes, and those came out really good too. And I will probably try that as well. There's different methods. Some people dig them into the ground. Some people do kind of a different method where you start kind of on the ground, and you just put the potatoes, and then you cover it with some, you know, heavy soil and compost and whatever. And then as the potato starts growing out, you actually put more soil on, and it keeps coming out, and you put more soil on. So people do this in a box. It's hard to kind of imagine it, but you kind of keep like moving up, you know, like wooden kind of like frame around it, and you keep throwing more soil on it, and eventually, you know, you get up to kind of like a big height. You let the potatoes grow out, and then when you go to harvest them, you just simply remove the wooden slats from around it, kind of like move away all the soil, and all the potatoes are going to be there without kind of having to dig. So my brother did that, and it worked out really good. I'm probably going to try to do something similar. Raven Veganista, you're an S to the animals, environment, humans. Thank you so much. That really means a lot. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Leon. Good luck. Thank you. The podcast I can listen to in the car. I don't drive enough right now to actually, like, you know, usually, like, I mean, I was out with my wife, like, in the car together, so it's like we weren't going to listen then. We were, like, busy talking and stuff, so we'll see. But I'll just try to, I don't know, put it on. It's hard with the kids at home, too, a lot of times. Like, if I'm doing the dishes or whatever, I can't really put anything in. They're constantly, like, coming in and out and talking, and I don't know, it's fun, but I just can't really listen to stuff lately. Good luck and great stream. Thanks a lot. Cool. Yeah. Alright, guys. So yeah, that's it. Hope everybody enjoyed it, and thank you so much for your support. The subscriptions keep growing, so it's like really good to see that, you know, people are, you know, getting the message. And I think yeah, let's everybody, you know, do the best you can and try to, you know, advocate. We can make the world a better place for ourselves, the you know, all the other non-human animals, and the environment, and have clean air and water to breathe. It's like that's what we should all want, and none of the other stuff that, you know, divides people should really matter until we have all that stuff solved first. So that's my view. Cool. Thanks a lot, Vohan, for being on. Appreciate it. Alright, guys. Cool. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.